I remember there was a time I wasn't able to focus on really anything. When I was a teenager, my priority was finding ways to keep my mind occupied with usually things that didn't matter. This often would be scrolling the top 10 lists on YouTube whilst not doing my coursework and studying for exams. It did actually snowball in a lot of ways. This was my mindset for quite a while, and even though it got me through the short-term problems like boredom, it actually opened up a whole can of worms. Today I'm going to talk with reference to the book Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I actually like this book. This book is like a greatest hits of all of the self-development wisdom and titles, and it has inspiration from parts of the 80-20 principle. There are definitely parts that feel ripped straight out of Darren Hardy's Compound Effect. But I don't mind that. I think sometimes it's good to have all of the good bits of wisdom and advice all in one book, and it's really short as well. It's safe to say that there isn't enough time to do everything in the world, and no matter how much you can do in a given day, this constant need to feel productive is what negatively affects many high achievers. No matter how much you do, you can still feel that you're not good enough. I feel this on a day-to-day basis sometimes as well. But there's actually something called the law of forced efficiency, which pretty much explains that you don't have enough time in the world to do everything, but we always have the opportunity to pursue something which is important to us. What Brian Tracy recommends is that you should be selective in what you do. He says you should start with the frog. Now, what is the frog? The frog is actually a metaphor for the ugliest, most difficult, demanding task of your day. The reason why you should do it first is very simple. The sense of relief you have from completing something challenging, you actually get this feeling. You probably have heard of it. It's called endorphins. This body chemical gives you a positive buzz. It's usually achieved when you achieve something meaningful. Short to long-term effects can mean that there's increased confidence and a higher mood. It's quite addictive when you get on a good roll and you end up just do some really amazing things in such a short amount of time. That being said, this feeling is what can lead you to learning new skills and abilities when you put your mind to it. So definitely worth taking advantage of. Planning is something you should always do first and foremost. We hear this word thrown around a lot, which is why I'm going to explain again. You should write on paper what you want and the steps you're going to take to get towards it. Break down every little step that needs to be taken to reach that objective, like brainstorm and think of every possibility, even if it doesn't feel relevant. Then make the plan, where you've got the deadlines set and the priorities of the plan become organized. A goal is actually, in its entirety, quite hard to visualize, but the small steps taken towards it are far easier to think of. It is said that actually 10% of your time that you spend planning can save you 90% of the time when you're actually doing the job at hand. This is very true. This is something that I do as much as I can. I admit I don't do it daily, but when I do it daily, it does have an amazing impact. Having a daily plan can save you 2 hours on average worth of time. What I tend to do is plan my weekends by just giving a rough estimate of the time that I have available. So that way I have like a safety buffer, like a margin for error, just in case I spend a bit more time on things that actually I didn't think of really. Also, when I'm completing a task or I'm about to do something, I think, what do I want to achieve from this? When I go into a shop and pick up a chocolate bar, I often have this dilemma, like if I buy this, how am I serving my future self? Am I saving money? Is this rewarding my health? Or do I deserve this reward? If you ask yourself these honest questions, they'll help you find the truth in your actions. I think it's said that successful people think years into the future at a time. Not often with a crazy amount of intricate planning, but thinking about how does every action benefit them. A motivational speaker, Dennis Waitley, said, losers try to escape from their fears and drudgery with activities that are tension relieving. The thing is that problems are inescapable, but a constant consideration of the future can help minimize their impact and damage. There was a very famous quote from Warren Buffett about how he used his time, and I think he was asked this question at a speaking conference. He just replied, simple, I just say no to everything that is not absolutely vital to me at the moment. And I know what you're thinking, Chris, I don't want to live my life in this way. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to waste time on things and experiences that I don't enjoy. And I think there's a fair argument to be made, not being so all consumed with your work and your projects that you've got no time for your friends and family or your hobbies and passions. But there's a big but. The thing is that you want to choose how you want to not be working, if that makes sense. Because I don't know if you've ever been with your partner and blocked off the entire day intentionally, like in the lead up to this, you've done all of your work for the week and you're satisfied with how you have resolved all your commitments, at least for the time being. Maybe on this day off that you've had with your partner, you've gone wandering in a forest or gone to the park to befriend as many cute dogs as you can together. The point is that if you intentionally choose how you're going to spend your time, it's not actually wasted time. It's the opposite. It's actually very valuable and it's very good for your mental psyche to be able to do this. And it also helps your happiness and fulfillment levels. That is actually what we want and desire on a day-to-day basis. Balance isn't something that just happens. We have to work at it mindfully. On the other hand, procrastination is what leads to a lack of action. Maybe it's that email that has been lurking in your inbox, or it's that project that never seems to have enough funding for you to approve. Whatever it is, you are the person who can halt the progress of this thing, or you're going to be the person that gets that task done. It's your choice. Or would you rather be in that situation? I don't know how true this is. I got this off the internet, but I've actually heard this quite a few times, to be fair. It is alleged that Bill Gates reads on average around 50 books a year. I know that some of us might think that this is overkill, like who needs to read 50 books a year, even if they might be quite valuable. But you should always try to keep yourself at the top of your game. You should constantly look for ways to level yourself up. Every day should be a learning day, whether that's listening to educational podcasts on the train or YouTube tutorials in your room. You should always look for a way to learn and improve. What this does is also subconsciously ram tidbits of knowledge into your brain, so they're more likely to be remembered. When this happens, you should think about your goals. I think they did this study where they took two groups of kids to do a challenge. It's like a series of puzzles or questions, something like that. There was one group that was told to act like their favorite superhero, and the other group was just told just to do their thing, just as normal. It turns out that the group that was told to think and act like their favorite superhero did leagues better than the normal one in such a big way. They showed signs of persistence, and even as the test got more challenging, they stuck through it. Another thing worth mentioning is how you track your performance. The more you track your performance and you see yourself improve, it's so much more motivating. For boxing, I actually ended up doing something over the course of my education and my training. I was writing lots of notes. So anytime I was taught like a certain skill or movement, you should always give yourself opportunities to take on as much knowledge as you can. And most of us don't have good memories, so writing it down is actually a nice good step as well. And I think being proactive in absorbing knowledge is how you can learn any skill. It's how you can learn any craft. And it just starts with the willingness to be able to teach yourself and put in the legwork required to do it. Sounds really silly and sad, actually kind of talking about this, but I used to have these fantasies. Like if I saw someone that had a really nice watch on, or was wearing a suit, or was in really ripped shape on the beach with, had amazing body and everything, I would always imagine what it would be like to be in their shoes. I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to be that guy one day. I wanted to escape from the fact that I was just a geeky kid that struggled with self-esteem issues. I know that these things are vanity metrics. I was imagining having these things and these attributes without having to work for these things. It was all in my head. According to the psychologist, Nathaniel Brandon, he defined self-esteem as the reputation you have with yourself. I think when you're working towards a goal and you take real action towards it, it becomes no longer in your head. The sense of self-worth that you have with yourself, it improves. I've felt this multiple times. What this requires is a bit of pressure that you're going to go a little bit further when most people would probably give up and call it a day. What that comes down to is identifying what activities in your life are worth value and which ones are worth low value. Having a phone call with a mate can be rejuvenating, but if that time that you're spending talking with your mate creeps up upon your hustling time, it makes you feel a little bit bad. What this comes down to is honouring your word, your work ethic, to do first and talk later. This whole idea is a momentum principle of success. This is that it takes a lot of energy to get started, but once you're going, it actually is far easier to actually keep on with that activity. Think about whenever you've had to force yourself to go on a run. I hope no one's forced themselves to go for a run. You should hopefully enjoy going on a run. The thing is that getting your trainers on is hard. Getting out the door can be very hard, especially if it's freezing cold and everyone is asleep on your road and there's not a single light on the street. Once you find your pace, your body adjusts. The saying is that it's far easier to stay up than to get up. By working in quite a high intensity way, you actually improve your positioning on something called the efficiency curve. This is because consistent work done over long stretches of time actually improves your ability. You might know of the story of the top grossing band of all time, arguably, the Beatles. They went to Hamburg in Germany to cut their teeth as aspiring musicians. They failed over and over again, playing whatever gigs they had in the most run-down places that came their way. No one knew who they were, no one really cared. What happened was that after 10,000 hours of accumulated practice, they went back to the UK. We weren't ready for them. We weren't ready for what we were about to hear. As you know, the rest is history with all of the hits that they've accumulated. Generally speaking, I think the main message of this book is to take a look at the hardest challenge first. It's not being afraid to take that big frog which is on your plate, the ugliest frog. But the thing is, put some salt, put some pepper, put some sugar, some spice, and everything nice. If you're gonna eat an ugly frog, you might as well make it memorable. Anyways, I really enjoyed this one. It's a very good book. I think there's a lot of insights that we can take away from this. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.